Welcome into Sunday Brunch here on the Sports Objective. I am Dave Richmond along with Kyle Barber. How are you, man?
What's going on, Dave? How you doing, man?
Well, I thought I came here for Sunday brunch. I thought you were going to have the omelets and the mimosas and all that kind of stuff here for Sunday brunch, but apparently, I don't see any here on the table. So I guess I'm going to have to make my own, right?
You'll get nothing like it. No omelets, no mimosas, no Bloody Marys, no coffee, no French toast, no. I don't know what do you bacon ham? I don't know what you have with brunch. You have some lunch items with brunch sometimes. I know.
Yeah, like sandwiches and stuff, right? It's kind of like a mixture.
Yeah.
Of
No.
things.
No
We'll
nothing.
have to, all right, I promise I'll work on the Sunday brunch Sports Objective
We,
menu.
we, we were supposed to have former East Carolina wide receiver Trayvon Brown join us, but I don't know what happened. But we will try to reschedule with Trayvon. So if you tuned in earlier, hoping to see the interview with Trayvon, hopefully we will get that rescheduled.
Yep, and we should have. We're saving the table for Bubba. He'll be with us in just a few minutes. And are you going to place his order for him, or
He's supposed to be bringing. He's supposed to be bringing Captain Crunch French toast. So
okay?
you ever had that? You ever had Captain Crunch French toast?
It's really good. Yeah,
That is good.
that is good. I haven't thought about that in a while. So we want to talk, obviously, while we have the moment here on Sunday brunch on the Sports Objective, about obviously you and I and Bubba. We are actually going to talk about all the stuff going on right now with scheduling and everything. We'll see what happens with COVID-19. It looks like right now, by what we're all hearing, I know when you were first talking about, and I agree with you, they would delay the season for a month, and I said, well, it'll be pushed back for a month. It looks like that's what they're going to do, but it's going to be conference only games, and that means
right. Go ahead.
Right?
Yeah, and I mean no official announcement, but everybody's starting to go conference only. And what I think you're going to probably hear in the next week or two is you're going to have across the board. So far, the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the MAC have announced they're going conference only. The ACC is rumored to follow suit this week, and I would imagine you'll see all conferences do it. I think what we're going to see is initially they're going to announce the start date is pushed back probably till the end of September, the last weekend of September, with conference games only. And then if they can't play then, and hopefully they'll be able to, then I think you're going to have spring ball. I don't think – I just don't see a way where East Carolina financially relies too much on football. A lot of group of five schools, and then you get in, there's Bubba. A lot of group of five schools. Bubba's never live on camera. It's just always a stagnant image of Bubba. But you get a lot of group of five schools, and then you get into the FCS schools that, missing an entire football season, the amount of sport, I think the rules would have to be changed because I don't think we'd be able to pay for a lot of sports anymore. So I think if you can play it in the spring, if we end up not playing it all this fall, you got to do it. I envision like starting the last week of February, playing through the last week of April, conference games only. And then to me, what you do after that, whatever postseason you would have, you do the 1st of May. And then what you do after that to give the guys a little more time off, to me, then you push the 21 season back and start it at the end of September, the 1st of October, and play a full 12-game schedule. I think that's the only way you can do it if we don't at least get conference games this fall. But I would expect, guys, that what you'll hear is an across-the-board announcement for conference-only games with an expected start date of the end of September, 1st of October. And then if we can't do it, then we push it back to spring.
Yeah, I'm looking at Bubba. I know you're joining us now, and you've been working hard with his son had a baseball tournament this morning, and I know you're back now. It definitely looks like for me that I think that financially, guys, too, I think it makes more sense as far as we can have more right now. It looks like what John Gilbert saying last week, the single game tickets were the only. There would be no single game tickets, is what I'm trying to say. Then basically what we talked about, maybe that 25%, you're looking at the most you could have in the stadium is about the 13,000 or something like that. Or just under 13. That to me, those are numbers like we had under Mo. And so you definitely want to have football in the fall. However, financially, I think you have to wait to the spring, right? For us, maybe we could have 25 or 35,000 by that point. Who knows?
Bubba, you there? Bubba, if you're there, we cannot hear you. So I'll answer it. What you're saying is it may be better to move it to the spring because we'd have more attendance, even if we can play it later in the fall. That's a good argument. I'll say this. If things cool down enough where we can play in the fall at reduced capacity, I would imagine it's going to go ahead and be done. But that is a good argument that hopefully by the spring you'd at least be able to do 50% capacity, maybe even full capacity, depending on how readily available the vaccine is. And also, the theory of treatment is, to be sure, as we've came a long way with treatment between March and now, that will continue to get better. Who knows? There are some signs that think this thing is weakening, even though it's just as contagious. It's not as deadly. Will that trend continue? So by the time spring rolls around, if there's a vaccine starting to be distributed, if hopefully the thing has continued to weaken and we've gotten better at treating it, then who knows? You could have 100% capacity in the spring.
That's the thing, is that by that point, when you have a vaccine, like you were saying, the latest I'm hearing that we could have it is March, but I think it'll be sooner than that. I think that they'll have it. The earliest I heard they could have it, the vaccine with everything that is going by very fast, is maybe January. Like you said, we talked pre-show meeting, but March is somewhere in that January to March window. So, I mean, if you have a vaccine and people get a vaccine, then I think it'll be all systems go. And then, like you said, you just push it back. And then, like we were talking about before, you don't have the traditional spring football practice.
What you got to remember about a vaccine, Dave, is they're saying it's going to be ready by January, but how fast will it be distributed to the masses? You're talking about billions of people around the world wanting it, and millions of people in America. You gotta wonder how long it's going to take to get everybody vaccinated. But to be sure,
hey, can you imagine that you have to take the ticket office, you have to take your shot record before you get your season tickets?
Whatever
it takes at this point, right?
Yeah.
Have you had all your shots?
You have one of those tags, like a dog for rabies. You can have I've been vaccinated for COVID tag.
Oh my God.
Who knows, man? It's like I said, one thing I can guarantee you, if we're still in the same situation we're in now, but I remember saying this in March. I remember saying, if we're not playing college football by the fall, then we'll have bigger worries in college football. But I'll go on a limb and say that if by the spring we're still not able to play college football, then man, this country's going to be in bad shape.
Yeah, exactly. And Bubba, are you there with us now? We'll see if we can. He's there on mute, so we'll.
Bubba, unmute yourself.
He fell asleep at the table, so we'll get him back, and we'll try to, maybe Kyle, you can shake him or something to wake him up. But anyway, we're gonna have fun talking about. I think it's interesting to see that you potentially could have basketball, baseball, and football overlapping there in the spring, right? Early spring.
Yeah, that's something we talked about.
Yeah,
a lot of people, if you can't play football by the end of September, then you're not going to play basketball in November. So does it get pushed back? One thing I was thinking of, if you start football at the end of February and you play February, March, April, or the end of February, March, April, and then into May, you start basketball up in April and you play conference games only, and you play April, May, and then have your postseason in June. And it would overlap with the College World Series. And then I think you just play baseball at normal. So
is it possible? Here's a scenario I could see too. I was just thinking about, is it possible that the first half of the basketball season will be no fans, and then the second half of the season, like sometime in January or something?
No, I don't think so, Dave. Because to me, I go back. You got an enclosed arena versus an outside facility. So to me, that's going to be more precautions need to be taken. And then, like I said before, unless there's just something major that happens between October and November, if you can't start the college football, see, I think they'll push the college football season all the way back late September, early October. And if you can't play it by then, if you can't play your conference games only by then what are the chances you'd be able to play basketball a month later?
Yeah.
So, I think you'll see both seasons push back, and I guess you could potentially, Dave, see a basketball season. If we get a vaccine around the first of the year and it's able to be available, I guess you could potentially see a basketball season starting in January or February. But the way I'd do it, if you're going to move football back, then move basketball back, and then just play basketball. Start your basketball season around the time football's ending, like we do normally. So you'd start basketball up in April, and then play conference games and end it in June. And like I said, very similar to college baseball ending point. You'd have the NCAA baseball and NCAA basketball tournament going on at the same time, and then I don't know. We'd get a lot of sports there in the spring. It would certainly make up for all the sports we've been missing. But I'm still hopeful that we can start the football season at the end of September and get conference games only. And as of right now, we're still playing August 29th, but I wouldn't hold my breath.
Yeah. In fact, Richard Allsbrook says the Marshall game, that Marshall game is very special, but like we were talking about, I mean, at the end of the day right now, let's see. Oh, I see what he's saying now. He put up here, the ECU Marshall game will be a great opportunity to showcase the country how to get back to football.
Yeah, if we can do it, I just don't see it happening. August 29th. And if you push the season back, you're not going to do non-conference games. So I think that's where we're headed. I would be shocked at this point if you see any non-conference games this year. So, and then the question becomes, what do you do with these non-conference games? Do you push all your non-conference games back a year? Do you play 2020's non-conference games in 21, and then everything just on your calendar for non-conference gets pushed back a year? To me, that's the sensiblest thing to do and the easiest thing to do. Because if you start trying to reschedule things and you got this team going, well, you didn't come here, so now we're not going to go there, and let's reschedule you for this date in 2027, that's going to become a mess. So to me, the NCAA needs to step in here and tell colleges across the board simply, you're gonna if we don't play any non-conference, you already have a problem right now. Let's say I don't think it will happen, but let's just say some conferences do play non-conference games. Well, then you got the Big Ten, the MAC, and the Pac-12 also. They're not going to play non-conference games, so you've already got a situation there where they're going to have to figure out when those games are going to be rescheduled if you don't just push all non-conference games back 1 year.
Yeah, and the fact that what I was getting at too is, let's not forget the FCS conferences with those games. They make a lot of money on those games, and to come play an FBS school, and say, for example, for us this year we have Norfolk State. If Norfolk State can't replay that game, you're looking at, I think it's what, 350,000 that they make from us for that game.
I don't know what the buy is, but probably something like that. Yeah, you have a lot of those FCS schools, just like some of the Group of 5 schools that are taking big money paydays.
We got one next year, or supposedly, right? Coming up.
It was next year.
23. No, 20. It's 23, I think.
Michigan. So you take those games, and it helps fund your athletic budget. So it's a mess. I mean, it's just an absolute mess.
And Richard's asking, what about the players an extra year of eligibility because of shortened schedule?
No, I don't think so. If they still get to play, you still get your conference games. You're missing 4 in potential postseason. You're missing 4 games. I don't think you get an extra year of eligibility because of that. They didn't give they didn't give the basketball teams an extra year of eligibility for not being able to participate in the pro season. You got to remember, all these guys that got to do their conference tournaments, and in some conferences, like the American, didn't even do their conference tournament. So you got kids that didn't get to play in the NCAA tournament, the NIT, and their conference tournaments, and they didn't get an extra year of eligibility. So no, I don't think that'll happen. If you miss a whole season and they're not able to play this thing in the spring,
that's a different story.
Then you would have to give them an extra year of eligibility. But then
another thing that comes to mind, Kyle, that
you got a lot of scholarships that have to be paid for then, Dave, because you got your next year signing class come in, and it ain't like baseball. You got a lot of scholarships in college football, and that's going to be a mess if we can't do anything and play some kind of schedule by the spring. I'll say this: if we're not able to play football by the spring, the results will be catastrophic across college football. I mean, the millions of dollars that'll be lost. I think you'll see. I think you'll see the amount of schools, the amount of sports required to play FBS at 16 or 1A, if you still prefer that term. I think you'll see that drop to probably. I don't even know that they would be a requirement. I think you would. I think temporarily for about a 5-year period.
Relax the standards, right?
Yeah, I think you would see so many sports dropped. It would be mind-boggling. I'm telling you, the amount of money we would lose by not playing football. You got all your Group of 5 schools rely on it, and FCS. But Group of 5 is particularly even more so than FCS, Dave, because if you're trying to compete at a high level at a Group of 5, maybe not a MAC school, maybe not a Ball State, but if you're East Carolina, if you're UCF, if you're Boise State, you're spending money at a level as much as you can to try to compete with the Power 5 schools. And you count on your football revenue. I mean, we got, the TV contract was just signed. It goes into effect this year for the American, and our TV revenue was going to go up from around $1.5 million to $7 million. And you're not going to get that money if you don't produce content for the TV station. So that's $7 million right there you won't get. Then, I don't know exactly what East Carolina football makes, Dave. I don't know if you know. I would imagine it's probably somewhere between $10 to $20 million.
Yeah. It's somewhere in that ballpark, especially with I tell you what the thing that concerns me is for our football program is we finally, after the suffering through the Mo years, and we finally have Houston, we finally have where the trajectory is definitely going up. The recruiting has been tremendous. Everything's been great. To have this is like the worst possible time that we could ever have COVID, because we're trying to bounce back. And that's what worries me the most. Like I was telling you, financially with the games, if you have no fans or 25% only allowed to watch the games, you think about the concession stands, those charities that get a cut, and the ECU gets a cut of that money. You think about
it's better than none.
Oh, I know.
You can survive on that because you're going to still get your TV revenue.
The economic impact. I'm just saying the economic impact beyond ECU. With the restaurants and hotels and all that stuff, UBE and all the different places.
Well, they've been suffering from the losing, man. I mean,
that's what my point.
If you don't play at all by the spring, the economic impact for the city of Greenville and the city of Columbia, South Carolina, or Chapel Hill, or Gainesville, Florida, or Athens, Georgia, or Boone, North Carolina. It's going to be, and then you take somebody like Alabama. You mentioned Tuscaloosa. They got more money. They can survive not playing football more than we can for 1 year, but they're also going to lose more money. The University of Alabama probably makes between $80 and $100 million a year on college football. So that's a whole lot of money not to have come in 1 year. I don't think it would affect them to the point where they'd be in any kind of trouble, but they sure do hate to lose that money.
Well, yeah, when you look at that kind of money, I mean, I think Penn State was something like this was with a Joe Paterno, all that stuff going on back in the day. I heard they made 65 million in a year. That was probably what, a decade ago or whatever, however long that's been. They made 65 million for Penn State football just for one sport. I mean, that's amazing.
I mean, football pays for everything. I mean, basketball, if you're an elite basketball program like in North Carolina, it probably makes just as much money as football, but that would be a rarity.
There's not many yeah, that's why football is king, is because of the fact that there are more eyeballs. In fact, whenever the powers that be can get rid of this whole Power Five nonsense and all that, and they realize how much money they can make off a playoff. Right now, pro football is number one, but if they actually had a real tournament and they had a real playoff, they would surpass pro football. And that's not my opinion. That's just the God's honest truth. I think more people care about college football than pro football if they put a real playoff in there. But that's just
I mean, that's a different story for a different time. But I agree, and I think right now is I don't know that college football and NFL have a good relationship. I don't know that we're trying to. I want to say we in college football is trying to beat the NFL, but when you have the NFL's gotten very political, and some people don't like some stances they're taking on things, thinking they're going too far with it. So yeah, the NFL is primed for losing its top spot to somebody right now. But that's a different discussion for a different time.
Right. Bub, are you there? We're trying to get you involved in the roundtable, but
I don't know. Bubba just decided to put his picture up and not talk.
Yeah. Well, it's not technical difficulty. It's like he's covering a war over in the Middle East, and we're having trouble. We're not having technical difficulties. He's not covering a war. But anyway, no.
Okay.
Not that we know about. Not that we. Yeah. So the funny thing is now, this. I mean, when you think about the economic impact, and you and I are both music fans, and the music industry, as far as concerts for 2020, I bought a T-shirt for the Rolling Stones, because I knew the tickets would probably be hard to get or whatever. So I bought a ticket for that concert for the tour this year. That's not going to happen to at least next year. Things like that you would never admit. But that industry is what I'm getting at is not only sports, but sports is a form of entertainment, and our entertainment dollars, like the movie theaters with those chains, they're going to try to start back. By the way, my friend, you love movies like I do. They're going to start back this week because they're trying to salvage one of the biggest times a year for them, being the summer blockbuster season. So the summer season. So
yeah,
it's affecting. Like, my point is, all the entertainment dollars right now. People are staying home watching the Sports Objective on Facebook Live, of course.
right.
Hopefully so. Maybe they will one day. But there's people are staying home. That's why when you go to these big box stores, why they're making a killing right now, because people are doing home improvements. And I know you and Jessica have, and I have, and they're making a killing right now because where can we go right now? We have virtual. We can do shows right now on Zoom or Facebook Live or YouTube. We could do our traditional way, recording a podcast.
I mean, there's not a lot to do. You can go. I mean, we went to Gatlinburg. Pretty much things were open there. Some things were limited. One of my best friends is in Florida right now. She's at Universal Studios today with her kids. Wide open. Supposed to wear a mask in there, but it's open. And though all you do to get around wearing a mask, you just carry a bottle of water around with you all day.
Yeah, they yesterday Disney opened up, and Disney World, and I was reading an article on Yahoo: small crowds, short lines, social distancing, and COVID-19. It's almost been 4 months since they've been, since they closed.
Well, and they were in Disney World, I guess, was one of the last places to open in Orlando, because I think Universal and all that was already open.
They've been open a few weeks.
Yeah. So, there are places to go. You need to take precautions, and you're going to have to leave North Carolina. I mean, a lot of people have been crossing the border and going down to Myrtle Beach because everything's been open. And
Myrtle Beach is is really bad with COVID right now.
yeah, I know.
In fact, South Carolina is number 3 in the whole world with outbreaks for COVID.
Yeah,
So
I know.
Florida, I think, is number 2, and
Yeah.
Arizona number 1. So 3 states in our great country out of the top 25 in the world, and then North Carolina is number 25.
Yeah, and it goes to show that the science on COVID, they didn't know as much as they thought they did, and in some ways they've known more because they've been able to advance the treatment a lot. But a lot of people thought by summer it would kind of burn out. The heat would help. Well, you just said 2 of the top spots in the world for cases are Florida and Arizona. Well, it's pretty dang hot in July in Florida and Arizona. So I don't think heat's having any impact.
Kyle, we have another question from Richard Allsbrook, so I want to put that up on the screen for you. It says, if we play, I wonder how they would handle someone that tests positive, 14-day quarantine, especially the player that could miss 2 games. You pray no one tests positive or gets sick, especially in a key position. What a nightmare. Excellent point, Richard. That's something that the talking heads on sports talk radio, Kyle, have been talking about this past week, is that very scenario. Let's say that you have, for example, a key piece like Holton Ahlers. You have Holton Ahlers, God forbid, because we know his dad and love his dad, but let's say Holton Ahlers, so he's out for 2 weeks. And then you have questions like, for example, let's say, thank God we have the rule for, say, Mason Garcia, or one of those other guys. But Mason Garcia, I'm just bringing him as an example because of the redshirt freshman year.
Well, I'll tell you something. You mentioned Mason Garcia. I'll tell you an interesting scenario. Mason Garcia and Holton Ahlers are going to be in pretty close contact because they're going to be in the same room.
Well, exactly.
And so, what if you have your whole quarterback room get infected? So, what you do then probably is, and that goes back to conference only. You're going to have have the flexibility if you have a number of players sick to reschedule games. So, in other words, if we have a game coming up that weekend in South Florida, and we have 10 players test positive, you're not going to probably play that game that week. You'll probably reschedule that game. I think if you have a couple players test positive, those players will be quarantined. But I think if you have multiple players test positive, you wouldn't play that week or potentially for 2 weekends in a row, and the games would be rescheduled. And I think that's why that's one reason why conference only games are being done. More flexibility with scheduling.
Exactly. That's a great point, because that would give you, if you have the traditional window of 12 weeks and you have an 8-game schedule, that gives you a whole month, not only to about the whole issue about COVID and hopefully things are better, but also it gives you the flexibility of maybe you have a week or 2 in there that you build in, kind of like if with Jessica being a school teacher and Bubba is a school teacher, if you the calendar for a school year is built in with multiple up to, like, I think 10 extra days, because you're always factoring in inclement weather and craziness. So not COVID, unfortunately, we didn't know about that, but it's definitely a hot mess. It's definitely been something that's affected all of us. I mean,
and then that's an interesting point, non-sports related, you bring up. I would imagine now that digital learning has become a thing in most areas, in all areas, that snow days are going to be a thing of the past. And I also think it'll be easier. That'll be times that don't have to be made up. I think now when you have a snow day, the kids will learn digitally that day. When you have a hurricane, we're going to do digital learning, so the days won't be made up. I would imagine going forward.
Can you remember? I remember being a kid. I was in elementary school in Durham, and I'll never forget Holt Elementary. And I'll never forget there was a time where I went to sleep. And I said, it's terrible. I hate to admit it, but I was praying to God, please, God, let it snow so I don't have to go to school tomorrow. I was like in second or third. We had March of 1980, not to get off on the weather objective, but March of 1980 was a huge snowstorm. And we missed 2 weeks of school. We went in, that school year lasted till the second or third week of June. It was so long because we had to make 2 weeks of school up. We couldn't get to school. But I pray for those days, like you said. The good news about that, though, is we wouldn't have had to go into the middle of, instead of early June getting out like we wouldn't have to go to the middle, like to the, say, the 18th of June or something to make up for it. So you make an excellent point. So, hey, wait a minute, ladies and gentlemen. I think that we've, do we have a cameo from Bubba Rosenbaum? Wow.
That's Bubba.
Hey, so if we're taking attendance right now, is Bubba tardy?
He's late, right? He's always a little tardy, but yeah, he's tardy. You get a note from the office there, Bubba.
I'm giving you one sports objective demerit.
Oh no, not a demerit.
Bubba, if you get a fish sandwich, do you get tartar sauce on it?
Yeah, as long as you don't put me in the sand pit and make me do the breaded pork chop.
What the hell that is? What's the breaded pork chop?
Bill and Ted, do you remember that when they were talking about they were going to get a chance to take them to the Iron Maiden, and they were like, yeah.
No, the breaded pork chop, Kyle. That's when obviously the guys are all sweaty when they're in the middle of football practice. So when a guy fumbles, like pencil rolls, and they'll make them, Jeff Connors or whoever will make them do pencil rolls or different exercises in the sand pit. So all the sand's on their skin, hence the breaded pork chop.
Okay. I didn't know. I haven't heard that before. Yeah. I learned something here on that.
Speaking of that makes me a bit more. We've already talked about all the football stuff, but we can go. You can chime in on any of that we already talked about. But you guys remember talking about a breaded pork chop? One of my wife has a memory from school from when she was a student, not a teacher, of something that the lunchroom used to have called a pork chop-ette. Do you guys remember that? A pork chop-ette? It was
like a little small,
like a pork chop sandwich.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember that.
Okay.
I know the pork chop sandwich, definitely.
Yeah, pork chop-ette on the school bake roll.
And then my favorite, though, on that, speaking of that, is you knew you were in trouble when it said manager special. That means that whatever they had left over, manager special, they had that leftover stuff. They just put whatever they had together, and that manager special today, baby.
I remember pizza or corn dog day was always a good one.
Yeah, one of my favorites was a peanut butter and jelly and the vegetable soup.
Yeah, I like that too. Except you could always use peanut butter and jelly or grilled cheese, and I would always go grilled.
Oh yeah. See, I love both. I love grilled cheese too. So I could sometimes. You're right. I could go that route too. Right. Bubba, what is your take? You saw the. I know you had some stuff about COVID numbers, and we have a little bit of time left before we go. But if you're just joining us, we're doing the Sunday brunch here on the Sports Objective. Of course, all the stuff going on with COVID-19. I think, Bubba, I think the next week or two, you're going to see kind of what Kyle was talking about. I think the next week or two, you're going to see where everybody is pretty much going to say conference only to buy them some time. What do you think?
Yeah, it certainly seems to be going that way. What the Big Ten and then Pac-12 have said it officially, and then it seems that way with the ACC. Have you guys seen anything? Has the ACC gone definitively to the conference only?
Not official.
No, it's rumored. It's rumored, but not official.
Pac-12, Big Ten, and the MAC.
Okay. Yeah, I did see that about the MAC. I remember you and I briefly discussed that yesterday. But yeah, it certainly seems to be going that way, and I'm sure you guys talked about the reasons why. I mean, obviously the consistency and being able to have all the protocols the same where everyone's on a level playing field. That's one of the biggest things. And then also you give yourselves with an 8 or 9 game schedule, you have those 3 or 4 weeks to play with if you need to do any type of shifting around in games, rescheduling, and those sorts of things. So those are the major reasons why that's being done. Dave, you mentioned some of those numbers. If you saw the From the Helm with John Gilbert, 15 out of 270 for East Carolina. I saw the University of Maryland had 9 out of 185, and then they temporarily suspended things. Clemson, this is everybody, and this isn't just football and football staff, but they have tested 722 student athletes / staff, and they had 53 positives. So I think that came out like 7.5%, a little less than 7.5%. Indiana, 4 out of 299. Our good buddies up in up at UConn in Storrs, Connecticut, 0 out of 150. So that's just. But those are some of the numbers. Brett McMurphy at Brett_McMurphy on Twitter had put those out sometime yesterday.
Yeah,
that's interesting to hear that. Do you? I had a question for you, Kyle, and for Bubba. Something that I've heard is there's some people that are skeptical on as far as the very thing of not the testing piece of things, but the honesty of like that very thing of having zero out of how many, Bubba? I mean, I don't know, maybe
zero of 150.
I
mean,
anything is possible, but
my guess, Dave, is they've probably been more cautious up in Connecticut. The protocols were pretty tight in the Northeast.
Yeah, with New York being, yeah, that's true, around the corner. I'm not saying it's not possible. It's just funny how that's the only school I've heard of in the nation so far. All the ones I've been reading on social media and what you're hearing on radio and television. I mean, I've heard
some schools not reported at all yet. I haven't heard from like Toledo or a Central Michigan or anybody like that. So who knows?
It's almost like what I'm getting at. That the talking heads are saying on sports radio is the fact that it's kind of like gamesmanship. Like Kyle, like let's say you're a representative of a school, you're an AD, I'm an AD. You put your numbers out, but I'm kind of holding back to see, let's see what Kyle does, how he handles the situation, or this kind of like cards. You're putting out your cards on the table, and I'm kind of holding back to see what to do for various reasons.
I guess. I mean, Maryland suspended operations with only 9 positives. UNC suspended operations. I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't know why they would feel the need to do that. The gamesmanship, but I mean, I don't know what they have to gain by it.
I'm not saying that I agree with it. I'm just saying that they, I've heard, and I don't know that that's the case. It's something that we in the media, we have to have. I guess the way I look at it is that right now, what else is there to talk about? I mean, you have NASCAR. I know UFC is going.
Yeah.
Baseball, hopefully. NHL will start back August 1st.
Yeah, baseball's supposed to start in a couple of weeks. Well, we should actually have Major League Baseball to talk about very soon. Looking forward to that, actually. I have to say something about college football and scheduling. Guys, one thing I think is going to be announced, and I said earlier in the podcast, Bubba, along with the conference-only games, I think you're going to go and see them announce a delayed start to the season. I think that you'll, instead of having that Labor Day weekend start date, I think you're going to see them push it back until the end of September to give everybody more of a chance to try to get protocols locked down better, maybe get these numbers down, and have it. In a lot of states right now, in North Carolina, as of right now, we couldn't have any fans. So what I think is going to happen is everybody's going to go conference only. You're going to have your start date pushed back to the end of September. And then if we end up not being able to play, at the end of September, I think you're going to move it to the spring. What do you think, Bubba?
Yeah, I think that could very well be a possibility. I was thinking about that as well when I heard these other 3 leagues already going to conference-only schedules. And just I know at this point that wouldn't matter, but the Pirates, of course, that Labor Day weekend, currently as things are scheduled to be off because of playing August 29th, and then we wouldn't play again until September 12th if things don't change.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we'll be playing August 29th. I would expect everybody's going to go conference only here soon, and then the question becomes, if we're able to play the season, if we start it in later September, or even in the spring, and that's something, Bubba. My thoughts are, if you play it in the spring, you start probably the last weekend of February, you play through April. With your season ending in the last week of April, and then you have whatever postseason you're going to have in early May. And then to me, you give them the rest of May off, June, July, August, and then come back practice in September, and then start your 21 season a month late in October and play a full 12-game schedule. I can't see them playing football ending in April or ending in early May and then turning around and playing in September. Do you?
No, because I mean. Preparing to play in September, and obviously you have those handful of teams on week 0. I mean, the preparation for that, that's about the time, you get, you have summer workouts going on, and then things officially starting there at the very end of July, the first couple days of August. So yeah, that's not, having gone through it, I certainly don't think that's very practical, feasible, however you want to put it.
If you push it back up to October, I think you can do your summer workouts in late July or August, and then start your practice in September, and then play in October. And then do you think that's enough time? If you end your season, the last week of the regular season would be the last week of April, and then you start your season the first week of October, your first game. Do you think that's just enough time? I think it is.
Yeah, certainly not ideal, but yeah, and I would love to hear some athletic trainers and those who are more schooled on the medical side of things address that.
Also,
good idea for a guest.
Also, Bubba, you got to remember, you're playing an 8-game schedule versus a 12-game schedule.
Right.
So your body is already going to have 4 less games on it. You're going to play 8 games, so that needs to be kept in mind.
Yeah, and I want to mention too, guys. I sent you the Nicole Arbach had a great article about what we're talking about right now. But in that article, and they actually have it, they put it up on the Athletic on Facebook. I love the Athletic, by the way. If you don't know what I'm talking about, theathletic.com. It's a great place where you can read. They have great journalists up there, and Nicole's been on our show before. Hopefully, we can get her on again soon, at some point. But anyway, in the comments on Facebook, there was a scenario that's why I brought up the article, where there's a gentleman that brought up a point. Could you do and I failed to mention, it was pre-show to you, Kyle. If I ask you, I'm sorry if I can't remember, but could you do situation, guys, where you would have kind of like basketball, where you'd have a few games in the fall and like half your games in the fall and half your games in the spring? Or do you think that's any way possible?
I mean,
like November to December. In other words, November or
something.
Are
you saying suddenly, things start clearing up in late October, and we can play football in late October, in November? No. I mean, what's the point? If things clear up and we can play football in late October, just play football from October through January. I mean, why stop it and bring it back in the spring?
I mean, I was saying that, the very fact that you and I, Kyle, we were talking about the fact that with football, you could have, October, November, December, and you can even have, if you had to have your national championship the end of January, early February, close, even if it's close to the Super Bowl, no big deal.
Well, I think that's what you do in 21. I think if you play spring ball, then you start your season in October of 21, and you play a full 12-game schedule, and you end your season. You could actually end your season in January, and people are going to go, well, how's that possible if you start 1 month late? Because the month of December is a waste. The month of December, you don't play football for a couple of weeks, and then you play one bowl game this night, one bowl game that night. You just play through the month of December, and you could have your national championship game done and played by the end of January, 1st of February. So you could, to me, that's what you do in 21 if you play spring ball, an 8-game spring ball season in the spring of 21 for the 2020 class. And then I heard Urban Meyer ask the question of, well, what do you do about kids that enroll early? Are they allowed to play? No, it's a simple answer. If you're eligible to play for the 2020 season, then you can play football for the 2020 season in the spring of 21. If you're early enrollee and you enrolled, for the semester, but you're there and you're going to be playing in 21 the fall, no, you do not get to play 2 freshman seasons. If you're eligible to play Labor Day weekend of 20, you play in the spring. If you weren't, you don't. Agree with that, Bubba?
Yeah.
That's a Terry Gallagher rule.
A moment ago, I mentioned the possibility of getting Mike Hanley or some athletic trainer perspective. That would be excellent to get Mike Hanley on, somebody that's worked with it at East Carolina for decades. So we'll see if we make that happen, Johnny. And then also shout out to former East Carolina linebacker Quentin Cotton. Quentin's tuned in right now. Reached out to him about coming on for 50 Pirates in 50 days, and he said he'd love to do so, and he'll be in touch. So Pirate Nation, you'll hear from Quentin Cotton here in the next few days.
remember probably not a very probably not one of his favorite games to remember because I believe he got injured in the second half of that game against Tulane. But I remember, didn't he block a field goal against Tulane and run it back for a touchdown?
Yep, I remember in the first half of that game.
Quentin was awesome. Bubba, let me ask you, in FCS football, if you play the regular season and then make it all the way through the playoffs and play the national championship, how many games do you play?
I'm trying to recall now because they just play the 11 game. Yeah, so if you get odds are the team that makes it all the way through, like Dave said, you're going to play 15.
You're going to play 15 games from September through January. 15 games. All right. Now think about this. You're playing 8 games in the spring, and then you're going to play. That's 20 games. That's 5 more games, and you get a huge break in there. I really think it's a non-issue, man. I think if you were asking the kids to do that and then turn around and play a normal, start practice again, in July or work summer workouts and then practice in August and then play Labor Day weekend, that's asking a lot. But I think playing 8 games, February, March, April, and then turn around and playing 12 games and you start the 21 season a month late in October, maybe you drop it back to 10 games. Then you play 18 games in a span of whatever months. But I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Because that's one of the arguments, kind of along these lines, with the number of games that you've heard over the years, as far as expanding the playoff to 8. I know that you'll hear. Well, if they did that, they'd have to take it back to 11 games instead of 12 games. Obviously, it's only going to impact a handful of teams, but.
Yeah, it's so stupid when the FCS plays 15 games. And I heard, and of course, respect Bill Curry, and I thank Bill Curry for coming on. But Bill Curry made that point the other day on the podcast, and I wanted to say something to him, but out of respect for Bill and what he's done for college football over the years, I didn't. It's such a bullshit thing to say because they do it in FCS, they do it in Division II, they do it in Division III. You telling me that FBS kids couldn't do it? I mean, if they can have a playoff at all those other levels, we could have a playoff here. A true playoff.
Yeah, and the fact, guys, that like I was saying, that it's not about Kyle. You make the excellent point for us. We are a Power 5 school, but the some of the state schools that we have, sister schools, and even the ACC schools, they don't want us to be in the quote unquote Power 5 because that's potentially where we can move ahead of them. And when you look at a situation like us with college football could be making even more money. It's not about money, it's about power and control, and they only want certain schools. And then there's the schools that are not the top tier schools, like the Alabamas, all that, Ohio State, Michigan, whatever. Then in football, then they're not going to Clemson. Then they don't want those of us like us, potentially the top of the group of 5, if you will, to surpass them.
I don't think it's them. I don't think it's the Alabama and the Clemson.
No, I'm saying that's what I'm saying.
It's the North Carolina. It's the North Carolina.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
The Ole Miss and the Mississippi states that don't want. Suddenly now, if the American has access to the playoffs, you got more reason to go to East Carolina than you do North Carolina because if you're Mike Houston, you can look at a kid and say, "Son, let me ask you a question. Do you think East Carolina's got a better chance of winning the American and beating UCF if you come play for us? Or do you think North Carolina or NC State's got a better chance of knocking off Clemson and winning the ACC?" And you can make that argument if we were given equal stature. But that's a different story for a different time. I mean, that I get where you're going with it. But, I mean, hell, right now, I'd be happy to play a Sun Belt schedule if it means we could play. You know what? Let's play.
I know that. I know.
Let's play regional ball this fall. Let's play Charlotte and App State and Gardner Webb and Coastal Carolina and Elon. I don't give a crap. If we could play football, if you couldn't do it if you couldn't fly, if that was one of the rules, you got to play regional games. I'd be good with that this fall. How about you, Bubba?
Yeah, it's funny what when you're going through something like this, how your perspective would change. I was thinking about that earlier. Just I don't know. I think I may have even made the comment to Dave or maybe it was Britt or someone. I said I don't care. I said at this point I just want football.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you did tell me. You did tell me that last week, I think. And that's the thing. And the fact that Wouldn't it be nice and wouldn't it be nice for the fans that like us, more fans, if we could have fans that point and where you're talking about regional teams, if we could have football like delayed and we could have what they say it's a travel ban as far as flying, but you could, ride in a bus. Then if we had games in Dowdy Ficklen and it's like you said, Kyle, Charlotte or Gardner Webb, whomever,
Yeah.
then, or if it's in state only, if they said you can only go in state or whoever you play, then absolutely. The money that we need for the athletic department, I don't care who it is right now. Let's just play the football games.
Oh, hell. I mean, if it was all in-state games this year, now you're talking about playing NC State and UNC, Duke, and Wake Forest. I mean, can you imagine for 1 year, East Carolina, NC State, Duke, Wake Forest,
Yeah.
Appalachian State were all in one conference? I mean, oh, my God.
Yeah. I mean, that's if you think about it, if athletics were the way that you would say common sense, then you would have what we used to have and more of a regional conference when we were football independent, obviously football, but we were like had the CAA, those bus trips back in the day when I was in college. I mean, Old Dominion, and you had Wilmington, and you have George Mason and James Madison.
I can guarantee you one thing, my friend. If we don't play football at all, meaning we don't play it in the fall or we don't play it in the spring, you will see for all the Group of Five conferences, the amount of money that will be lost, the millions and millions of dollars. I'd be willing to bet you'll have a reshift in Group of Five conferences. And unfortunately, the American and such will probably change. I think you'd see, to save money short term, you may see a league with an East Carolina and a Marshall and an App State and a Charlotte. And you may see Houston and SMU playing in the same league with a Texas Tech and a UTEP, et cetera. Because I think Bubba, do you know the numbers, how much money East Carolina football makes? This is around $20 million.
Honestly, I do not recall, but
that sounds right.
Yeah,
it's a big number like that, and our budget is what, 43 million, Bubba, you told me last week.
Yeah, I heard John Gilbert on his recent interview with Henry Hinton here a couple weeks back. He mentioned that 43 million number, and as far as football obviously funds itself, and then also it funds a few others. It doesn't fund everything like it does, your Power 5 schools. At a school like a Tennessee or LSU, it can fund the entire department, but at East Carolina, that's not the case right now with us not being in that autonomous 5 group.
Yeah, and you look, what I was telling Dave earlier, Bubba, if you aren't able to play football this year at all, meaning fall or spring, I would think that you're going to have to change the rule about 16 sports to be at the FBS level. I don't know if you don't put a number on it or what, but I think you've already seen some programs cut at East Carolina and a ton of Group of 5 schools. I think it would be a slaughter. I think if this happens where we don't play football, I think the amount of Olympic sports that will be cut will require the FBS of 16 sports to be changed. It will be a disaster.
Something else I mentioned to you, Kyle, and I know this was a couple of days ago now, I think, but the NCAA Football Oversight Committee, they were seeking a waiver for playing or counting 2 FCS games toward bowl eligibility. Obviously, that would be a moot point if everybody's playing just a conference-only schedule. But if that's not the case, teams playing multiple FCS teams trying to become bowl eligible, they may have a 1-year waiver. But I'm like you guys. I think it certainly looks like it's going to be conference only at this point.
I have a question for you guys. I've been wanting to ask. I know that normally we say 6 wins, obviously, is what in a 12-game schedule. Mm-hmm. If you have an 8-game schedule, it'll go back to 4 wins.
I would think 4 and 4, yeah. And I don't know that you'll see.
You even have bowls.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know that you'll see bowl games. I don't know. If we play an 8-game schedule, what you may see is your 4-team playoff, and that's it. What you may see
conference championships.
Yeah, yeah, and your conference championship, and your 4-team playoff. And what you may see, Bubba, if they want to do something, what I would do, is to me, if you win 4 games, maybe you're allowed to schedule another home game.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Could you see them doing something like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess obviously from a fan's perspective, we would like it, but
well, you got to have some kind of reward. I mean, what are you playing for? If the only thing you're playing for
a conference championship,
right? But then, okay, then 2 games into the season, your season may be over. I mean, so if you can't win the conference championship, you need to have something to play for.
Yeah, ideally yes, but this year you may just be playing for the future. Playing because obviously even if we're out of the running for a conference championship, us getting to 4-4 in the American, as opposed
that's a huge accomplishment.
As opposed to 1-7 or heck 3-5, 4-4 over 1-7. That's
I got a feeling, and I agree with you, but I got a feeling they'll come up with something. Why not? Why not say?
How about I got an idea. Well, why not still have the concept of like what you call it bowl, but like have like back in the day. You remember when we had before bowl tie-ins were big, when you had where a lot of the bowls picked the teams. Then why not have a situation where maybe we could schedule a game with an NC State or a game with an Appalachian State or something.
What I was saying, if you win 4 games and you go 4-4, you get you get to play an extra game. I mean, so I mean that would be. I think you got to come up with something. I don't. And who knows? Maybe there still will be bowl games if we're able to play. And you just take a 4-4 team, like you want a 6 team. I don't know.
Maybe you're getting your wish, Kyle, of having well, you're talking about with a pro like league, but maybe we can have it where we could be having bowl games. I've never had bowl games near my birthday, but that would be kind of cool if you have it where what would be April.
If we play it in the spring, by then, if we're playing in the spring, I'm assuming we're back to pretty much normal as a society. So then you would think, you'd want to have bowl games. Can the bowl games get their stuff together to make plans? If it's announced now, they can make plans to have them in the spring.
What Kyle is saying is, if you want to go to one of these bowl games, then call the local, the different hotels and book your hotel in April. April, right?
Potentially.
No, I have no problems.
I do agree with Bubba though that if we play this fall an 8-game conference schedule, you may not see bowl games at all.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see. Bubba, I know we have a lot of content. I want to remind fans about our 50 Pirates in 50 days. We put a couple up yesterday, and we've got some more. They're obviously up on Facebook Live. You can go ahead and watch them, or certainly on our YouTube channel where you're watching live right now. But we're also putting the 50 Pirates in 50 days. I want to remind folks, we're also putting them out as a podcast on SoundCloud and Anchor. So 2 places you can hear the 50 Pirates in 50 days and all your that way, the traditional way of hearing the podcast. So we're still doing that, obviously, for the shows and for 50 Pirates in 50 days. And guys, I know with the we're having to see what we can do about the season ticket promotion, I guess. We do have a pair of tickets we'll give away. We'll see how that goes when I guess in the next week or so we'll kind of have a clear understanding.
You hope. I think it could be pushed all the way out to August 1st before they make an official word. Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see, man. This weird time we're living in.
Never did I think I'd be so excited for a 4-game home schedule instead of 6.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, exactly. If we're able to get that, we'll take it.
Absolutely. So, Bubba, I know this week on Tuesday we've got a big show, right?
Yeah, you mentioned 50 Pirates in 50 days. This morning we were supposed to have Trayvon Brown on. Unfortunately, Trayvon had something come up, was unable to make it. We'll try to reschedule that. Tomorrow we're catching up with David Blackwell, and that'll be at 5:30. So we'll be promoting that over the next few hours. Have that broadcast created. And then, like you mentioned, Tuesday, Curtis Thiemann from Port City Films will be coming on. He's at 7:30 or approximately 7:30. At 7 o'clock, it's Rachel Barbeau from Sirius XM, who does an excellent job with the Change the Narrative. She was unfortunately a victim of some domestic violence issues back several years ago. So she does an excellent job going around and talking to different student athletes on the college level and maybe professionally as well. Toward the end of the week, we will have Phil Steele. We'll record that Friday morning. That's going to be audio only. I know that you guys did not know that, but Phil Steele recording that at 10 o'clock on Friday. So that will be out probably sometime Friday afternoon. And if not, then definitely Saturday. And then also, like Dave said, we'll continue to have different 50 Pirates in 50 days over the next several days.
We're also working on, by the way, folks, different ECU coaches. We'll have them on throughout the summer. So we're working on that as well. What were you going to say, Kyle?
Richard Blackwell this week. It's the Pirates of Ruston, Louisiana. You got David Wolf, the defensive coordinator, former Pirate player and coach. You got Joe Sloan, former Pirate player, as the offensive coordinator, and then you got Skip Holtz as their head coach.
Yeah, they need to change their mascot, right?
Looking that way.
for not for racist reasons or whatever. Guys, I tell you what, I've enjoyed. Bubba, you're going to have to pay the bill now because you showed up late for Sunday brunch. So okay. Kyle and I have we vote. It's a 2-1 vote. You had to pay for the bill since you were fashionably late. No, we all switch roles. It's normally Kyle that sometimes shows up fashionably late, and now you're playing tricks on me, Bubba. Now you showed up fashionably late today.
I was nominated by Stacy to move some furniture around. So
okay, we love you, Stacy.
You changing around the living room for no apparent reason?
No, actually, this time it was we got a new armoire, and I was moving. We had assembled it here in the living room because there's a little more room, and then we put it on some sliders and slid it into the bedroom.
Armoire. Did you
armoire?
Before we go, when y'all were growing up, did your parents used to change your living room around for no apparent reason?
Not my mom. I know that goes on, but like a nesting kind of thing with ladies, but my mom never did. My mom is, I don't think, very normal, but in that regard,
not a whole lot. I'm pretty sure at some point that happened, Kyle, but I know we here recently did the same thing. We moved it around, but there was
you gotta make it new, Kyle.
But there was actually a little bit of rhyme and reason to this one, so I didn't fall into that category.
Yeah, I remember no reason.
We need to schedule Stacy on the show to find out some more stuff about Bubba, right, Kyle?
Yeah, we need to get. I've been saying it for years. You know, we need to get Stacy and Jessica on one night and just have them on as guests. And I think it would probably be pretty entertaining to have them answer questions about me and Bubba. Maybe do a college football quiz against each other, sports in general, and it'd be fun.
It would. Dave, what I was going to chime in with, I doubt y'all mentioned this, but the Pirates added a new piece to the roster for basketball, transfer from Navy. Dave, I'm guessing.
David, all right.
That's Dave or David Cassangane, I'm guessing that's how you say it, Cassangane. He's from Audrey Kell High School in Charlotte, 6'2", 180 pound, combo guard. He had redshirted as a freshman, and then last year he played a little over 10 minutes per ball game. What I saw of his high school film and then also a little bit of college film, seems like a good addition. Pretty athletic guard. Seems to shoot the ball pretty well. A small sample size from three in those 10-plus minutes per game. I think he shot like 13 threes and made 5 of them, so right around 40% from three. And so hopefully he will come in and do nice things for us. And then also, let's see, Cliff Godwin got the contract extension. Cliff was extended, and that was announced a couple of days ago, extended through 2025. So much deserved there. Also, some increases on the incentives that he will receive if we host regionals and those sorts of things. So congratulations to Cliff. I know it's certainly not ideal timing. I saw a lot of folks saying that on social media, whether it was Twitter or Facebook, but that was something that had been rolling since like back in February, but just had to announce it now. It's one of those things that, with everything going on with the budget cuts and et cetera, sports cuts, it doesn't look particularly good, but it is what it is. And it's certainly
right. Same
I'm sorry.
No raise involved, right?
No, just those some changes to the incentives, but it didn't say anything about a pay increase for sure.
Yeah, I could see even where the incentive increases could maybe not look good for some people right now, but you know.
Well, I mean, right? Hell, we didn't even have a full baseball season, so we saved money by not having that, and the fact if he to me, if he makes it, then that's what's great about those.
I don't have a problem with it. I can just see where.
Yeah. Right. By the way, guys, on the COVID front, Florida reports nearly 15,300 new COVID cases, the largest single day increase in any state since the pandemic began. That's been breaking news over the last few minutes. So I was going to tell you guys not to end the show, be a Debbie Downer, but it's amazing. Hopefully, one of these days it'll be nice to just talk about sports and not ever have to talk about COVID-19. And hopefully we can get back to, instead of the COVID-19 objective, we can be just the sports objective, right, Kyle?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much to Kyle and Bubba. Appreciate that very much. Hopefully enjoy the mimosas and certainly the Sunday brunch. And you've been watching the Sunday brunch right here on the Sports Objective. Good day, everybody. Go Pirates.